Okay, so this video is going to cover material from, this would be chapter 15, which is titled Pricing Strategy. I've alternatively named it Pricing Theory. So in this chapter, what we're going to basically do is we're going to talk about how firms with some pricing power, that would mean basically anything other than the perfectly competitive firm, how they determine what their price is going to be. And what we do know is that it's going to involve, in some way, shape, or form, it's going to involve the use of the marginal revenue equals marginal cost principle. So this is about 30 slides. I'm probably going to have to split it up into 3 videos, maybe even 4. And it should pretty comprehensively cover what we would have done in class. Okay, so let's see here. I have to learn how to do this. Here we go. Pricing theory. I made these slides myself, can't you see? But now I can't get it. Here we go. Okay, so the first slide, let's see here. Sorry for the technical, maybe it's just easier to do it this way. Probably is. Okay, so I'll just leave it like this. If I'm sure you can see it if you're watching it on any screen that's large enough here. So when we would have just finished the discussion of monopolies, which are firms that have significant pricing power, generally the only firm that sells to a number of customers. And one of the key things that we saw about these monopolists is that there was a significant deadweight loss. That significant deadweight loss was measured by a loss in consumer surplus, certainly, and probably even a little bit of a loss in producer surplus. But much more so the case, consumers lost some of their surplus and gave it to the producer, to the firm. And whenever there's a deadweight loss that exists, that's a cost to society as a whole. What it means essentially is that firms would be earning higher profits and that consumers would be paying higher prices. This idea that firms act to capture as much surplus as possible is called rent seeking. The way that they do this is by capturing as much pricing power as they can. And they do this through lobbying, right, getting legislation that works in their favor, by advertising, by showing that the product that that firm produces is better than substitute goods that might be available. And the rent seeking could also come about by just building excess capacity, making sure that outsiders face no incentive to enter the industry. The whole reason why you want to be that monopolist is you capture as much producer surplus as possible and you capture as much profit as possible. So what does that look like? In this case here, right, firms are going to set, let's see here, I think I can find a way to get a, no, I'm not going to worry about it. Essentially right here, firms are going to set their marginal revenue equal to their marginal cost for the single price monopolist, which is what's being drawn here. A single price monopolist means charges the same price to every customer. They set the MR equal to MC, marginal revenue equal to marginal cost. That determines the quantity, and then they go up to the demand curve to find the price, P star, Q star. Had the firm instead been perfectly competitive, then the demand curve would have also been the price, and it would have also been the marginal revenue, meaning that MR equals MC would have been way out here, which if we added an additional line here, this would be the perfectly competitive firm's output, perfectly competitive price. Now, when we compare what happens in terms of the surplus, what we see is that whereas firms would have captured under perfect competition this kind of like weird shape right here. They actually are going to capture this much larger portion here that goes from the marginal cost curve up to the price. So this kind of rectangle-ish kind of area. Certainly a much larger area. And they're taking that, these two little rectangles right here, they're taking that from consumers. And there is the deadweight loss, this triangle right here. So now that we kind of see what exists as the consumer producer surplus and deadweight loss, what we now want to look at, and that's the most significant part of this chapter, is go beyond the single price monopolist, the firm that just charges only one price to all customers. Because that doesn't happen very often. Most of the time firms engage in what is called price discrimination. Basically means charging different prices for the same good to different customers. Different customers have different willingnesses to pay, and they should be charged differently. That's essentially the theory here. And the reason why they're going to do this is that it actually allows them to even capture more producer surplus than they would even under a single price monopolist situation. And they're going to do this in a variety of ways, this price discrimination. And two of the methods we're going to look at are tariffs and bundlings. So price discrimination happens in degrees. First degree price discrimination is often called also perfect price discrimination. In first degree price discrimination, every customer is charged a different price. The marginal revenue curve is actually no longer used in terms of determining the output, because now the demand curve is going to be the same as the marginal revenue. And that's kind of what I point out here in the second bullet. Additional revenue, incremental revenue, or marginal revenue is exactly the price. That would then mean that now the difference between the cost of producing the good and the revenue to producing it, that's going to be now our profit here. Now, it's really, really difficult to get first degree price discrimination. First degree price discrimination would actually mean every customer having a different price that would require the firm to actually determine what the reservation price is going to be for every customer. A very costly thing to do. So the consequence is that usually what firms then do is they use price discrimination in an imperfect manner, meaning second degree, third degree, etc., which means that they don't charge as many prices as they have customers. Rather, they're just going to charge several different prices based on estimates of what consumers are willing to pay. Now, let's see here. I'm not sure if I can... Actually, no, I know what I can do. I'm going to pause the video right here. And actually, no, I'll save the video at this point here. And I'm going to draw out what this first degree price discriminating monopolist looks like. So I'm going to continue on with this discussion of first degree price discrimination in the second video. Okay, so for the first degree price discriminator, or the perfectly price discriminating firm, what it essentially looks like then is a situation where demand equals price equals marginal revenue. It would then have a marginal cost curve, traditionally shaped. But now watch what happens is that every time the firm, this perfectly price discriminating monopolist, sells a good, it charges this price. To get one more customer, they just charge the next customer that price. And so on, 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 all the way up until right here. they wouldn't sell anymore past this point, because at this point then the additional revenue would be less than the cost of producing that good. You'll notice MR would equal MC, so this will be our Q for our monopolist. And now this entire region will represent producer surplus, and there'll be no consumer surplus. There will also be no deadweight loss for this first degree price discriminating firm. Now, the question would be, where do we see these kinds of firms? Because again, we did say a little bit about how it's very costly for firms to do this. Well, actually the most immediate way that you actually see a first degree price discriminating firm would be something along the lines of like UW Stout or almost any college or university. Essentially what happens, right, is that you fill out financial aid forms. They determine essentially your willingness to pay for education, your willingness and ability to pay for the education, and they determine your reservation price, right? Like, there might be Richie McRichardson in class, right, who pays the full price, but then there might be poor Paul who pays very little, if anything at all. And it's almost an assurance that everyone's paying a different price. And we sell the number of seats up to the point where the marginal cost is equal to the marginal revenue. Okay, so I'm going to pause the video here, or no, actually I'll stop the video here, and then I'll continue on with the PowerPoint presentation.